The first mirror was cracked, an old antique he found in the back corner of a secondhand store. The edges were jagged, and its frame was a tarnished gold. But when he looked into it, the world behind him seemed to shimmer, and his reflection flickered like a distant memory. That's when Julian knew he had found something unusual, something powerful. It started small, just an experiment. Julian stepped closer, his breath heavy with anticipation. The surface of the mirror rippled, like water disturbed by a stone. And then, as if the glass itself had swallowed him whole, he was no longer in the dimly lit store. He stood in the middle of an unfamiliar living room, heart pounding in his chest. He didn't know how it worked. He didn't care. What mattered was that he was inside the home of someone else. A place of intimacy and vulnerability. His first victim, an elderly woman asleep on her couch, a pile of expensive jewelry sparkling on the coffee table. He stepped silently, almost reverently, toward the treasure. Julian didn't steal for the money. He stole for the thrill, the knowledge that no one knew he was there, that no one could stop him. His heart raced as he pocketed the rings and necklaces, careful not to make a sound. When he left, he did not step out the front door. No, he merely walked back to the mirror, and with a thought, he was home again, safe in his own quiet apartment. But the more he used the mirrors, the deeper the addiction grew. Julian became reckless, choosing houses that were larger, wealthier. There were no consequences, not in the way he could see them. His reflection in the mirrors never seemed to change, but in his eyes, the man staring back at him became darker, hollow. It wasn't until the third house that Julian began to feel the weight of his actions. It was a mansion, perched on a hill, filled with ostentatious displays of wealth. His fingers itched for the jewels, but when he slipped inside, he didn't expect to find anyone at home. He made his way through the corridors, but then he heard it, the soft cry of a child. Julian, breathless. The girl couldn't have been older than 6, her small figure curled up in a blanket on the couch, crying for her mother. Julian froze. This wasn't supposed to be part of the game. The sound of her sobs echoed in his mind as he looked at the sparkling diamonds on the dresser, the glint of gold reflecting off the walls. He stepped toward them, but his gaze kept flicking back to the girl, vulnerable and alone in the dark. For the first time, Julian hesitated. He could hear the soft creak of a door. Someone was coming. The mother? Panic set in. What would he do if she walked in on him? What would he do if the girl screamed? He grabbed the jewelry, quickly stashing it in his coat, but every step toward the mirror felt heavier now, the weight of his choices dragging him down. He stepped back into the reflection, but this time, the thrill of the theft was gone. The excitement had turned to dread. He stood alone in his apartment, the pieces of stolen wealth scattered on the floor. His breath came in short bursts as his heart raced with guilt. Days passed, but Julian couldn't stop. The mirrors called to him, whispering of more houses, more treasures. The girl's face haunted him every time he closed his eyes. He began to question himself. Who was he becoming? Was he the man in the mirror, the thief who took without conscience? Or was there something deeper, something darker, waiting for him to acknowledge it? One night, Julian came across another mirror, this one unlike any other he had seen. The reflection didn't show his apartment, but an empty street. Something about it pulled him in. Without thinking, he stepped forward and the world around him blurred. When it cleared, he was standing in front of a house he had never seen before, but somehow, he knew it was the home of someone he had taken from before. This time, it wasn't a jewelry-filled living room that greeted him. It was a darkened hallway, and the reflection in the mirror had changed. He could see it clearly now, his own face, but with a twisted grin, an expression that wasn't his. A sudden noise behind him made his heart skip a beat. Slowly, he turned around. Standing in the doorway was a figure he had never expected, the elderly woman, the one from the first house he had robbed. She was smiling, a soft, knowing smile, as if she had been waiting for him. Julian's mind raced. He had taken her most precious possessions. She had been asleep. Had she always known? The woman stepped forward, her movements slow, deliberate. "I see you found the mirrors," she said, her voice unervingly calm. "I've been waiting for someone like you." Julian's pulse raced. Was she part of it? Was she somehow involved in the mirrors? But before he could ask, she raised a hand, and the mirror behind him rippled once again. The last thing Julian saw was his own reflection, grinning back at him. The mirror shattered,